Today is Friday, the holy day for the Muslim population here in Xinjiang. I'm currently in Urumqi, the capital of the Xinjiang Autonomous Region within the People's Republic of China. I'm currently in a district called Tianshan in Urumqi. It's not necessarily the most touristic place. Within Tianshan, I believe there's the Grand Bazaar, which is a bit more touristic. But this avenue behind me seems to be more filled with locals and established businesses. I just came out right now of the Baidasi Mosque right behind me. That's the name it says on Google Maps. I can't really read too well what's written on that mosque. Seems like it says Ike Masjid, and then in the Uyghur script, which is quite similar to the Arabic one. When I first entered the mosque, I was asked to present my passport, which I found a bit intriguing at first, although it's quite common in China to be asked for your passport, to go to the train station, to go into some high traffic areas. But then I noticed that they only asked the foreigners, myself, people that clearly were not speaking Uyghur or Mandarin, to present with their passports. This might be for the security of the own members of this mosque, considering that there's heavy influence in this region from foreign countries trying to infiltrate mosques. It was in Bishkek a year or two ago, and the largest mosque there was funded by Turkey in order to push its own understanding of Islam and to exercise its own soft power over the population of Kyrgyzstan. As soon as I entered the mosque, I noticed that they were doing the khutbah, right, which is the speech given by the imam before the Friday prayer. It was done initially in Mandarin and Arabic. And again, this is all these prejudices that we get in Western media. I to a certain extent, I thought that they weren't going to be speaking in the Uyghur language within the mosque. And it's just that it happened that I came in a bit too early. As soon as more people gathered up, they redid the khutbah or the presentation or the sermon in Uyghur, right? So and what I found particularly interesting within this mosque was the design inside, the patterns. I've been to mosques pretty much all over the world, and we clearly saw a crossroad here, like a meeting point between Chinese architecture with, let's just say, Turkic architecture, Persian architecture, all in one spot. Notable colors that I've noticed inside this mosque were kind of that jade type of green, a very soft pink. You're going to see the photos. These were really, really impressive. And this is just the first mosque really that I found here in Xinjiang, and I decided to attend for the Joma prayer. But really on this same avenue that I'm on right now, there's maybe 3 or 4 mosques spread over, maybe each 200 meters. There's another mosque for the Muslim population here in Xinjiang. During the height of the anti-China propaganda, I was told by acquaintances and former friends that speaking Uyghur is forbidden in China, that having beards is forbidden, and I hope you'll see in the footage that I'll be sharing. The Xinjiang province truly has its own character, its own vibe that is not really found anywhere else in China, but it is still governed by the Communist Party of China, and there's this consistency across the whole country on how the country is governed. One thing that I've noticed here in Xinjiang is notably how culturally, the people in the Uyghur people or the people in Xinjiang are a bit more lively, to say the very least. We're seeing in the markets just around, a lot more life, let's just say. And what I mean by a bit more life here is the excessive honking. Obviously, in other parts in China, the vendors are quite aggressive and trying to get you into their shops. But again, having been to Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, Tashkent, and Almaty, there's that same kind of, I don't know if Silk Road is the best way to describe it, but that kind of aesthetic, right? You're seeing the merchants doing their craft. Also, it's important to mention that not everyone in Xinjiang is necessarily Uyghur. There are sizable ethnic Kazakh communities, ethnic Kyrgyz communities, Tatar, Hui, and of course, Han Chinese. And you kind of see the overlap between those different cultures and as you can see, here you've got Samsa, Plov, and the what's it called again? The Uzbek, or I mean, maybe Uzbek is not the best word to describe this, considering we're in Xinjiang here, but that kind of Central Asian loaf of bread that is circular with defined patterns on them. When I first arrived in Xinjiang, I didn't expect as many people speaking Uyghur language commonly in the streets. I didn't expect also that many Uyghur people, because we keep hearing that Xinjiang is being colonized by the Han Chinese. But truly, as soon as I got out of the airport, having flown from Shanghai to Urumqi, everything is written in both the Uyghur script as well as the Mandarin or Chinese, simplified Chinese characters. And the police here is, we're often told that there's a heavy police presence and that China is trying to push its rule over the population here. But the actual police over here are pretty much all, from what I've noticed, although it's quite hard to sometimes distinguish, they're all, let's just say, Central Asian, at least the ones that I've noticed. So there are Uyghur police, Kyrgyz, Kazakh, and the list goes on. One thing that I've noticed as well is that in China, or at least in the eastern part of China, in Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, the police often just plays a role of facilitating traffic. Here you do notice a slightly more present police force that is doing a bit more than just facilitating traffic. And that is because of the nature in Xinjiang of the separatists, right? So there's a group called the East Turkestan Islamic Movement, I believe. It's called ITIM. These people have been doing terrorist attacks across China, specifically in Xinjiang, but also in other parts of Central Asia and Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan. And these are listed as terrorist organizations due to the practice of bombing infrastructure and terrorizing the population here. And when I first presented my passport at that mosque, I went back home and I searched up why would there be like kind of this tracking of foreigners into these mosques. And it turns out that around 10 years ago or so, a imam at a mosque, like the leader of a specific mosque in Kashgar, which is at the border with Pakistan, was killed by 3 members of ETIM, right, the East Turkestan Islamic Movement, because that specific imam was talking about improving ties between the Uyghur population and the Chinese, diverse Chinese population. And he was a member of the Communist Party of China and believed in this brotherhood between the unity of China as a whole. And these 3 terrorists ended up assassinating him as he was leaving Fajr prayer, or the morning prayer, around 5-6 a.m. in Kashgar, Xinjiang autonomous region. In China, there's only one time zone, and that was a bit of a challenge today, trying to figure out at what time the prayer was at. Because don't forget that I flew from Shanghai to Urumqi. That's a 5-hour flight going west in a straight line. You know, the flight was at 3 p.m. 3 or 4 p.m. and I landed at 9 p.m. local time. And the sun was still out at 9 p.m. when I landed. And then if you drive let's say 100 kilometers more west from Urumqi, you're now in Kazakhstan. And you have to deduct 5 hours as soon as you enter Kazakhstan. So the time difference is wild. Generally, Jummah prayer is at 1 p.m. And considering there's only one time zone, I was trying to do some math here. I searched up online, and it turns out that there's an informal time zone here, which is Urumqi time zone, which is, I believe, 2 hours behind China. I don't believe it's allowed to use that specific time zone. After the Communist Revolution, the success of the Communist Revolution, Mao Zedong enforced the one time zone across China to create the sense of unity. But I saw one gentleman at the mosque who had his time listed at 2 hours behind us, the regular Beijing time. So now I'll be entering the Grand Bazaar, and I'll show you guys a bit how the more touristic areas of Xinjiang look like. Right behind me is the Urumqi Erdao Mosque. And what is particularly interesting about this mosque is that there were claims online that this mosque was destroyed and that the minarets were destroyed, and they tried to I forgot what the word is, but to sinify, let's just say, right, to turn this mosque into something a bit more Chinese looking. And as you can tell, this mosque represents Central Asia and the Silk Road, probably more than any other mosque that I found in Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan and beyond. Just look at, I'm not sure, maybe this is like a water cistern or something along those lines. Not quite sure what this is, but as you can tell, the mosque clearly has a distinct Islamic aesthetic. It says over here, the Arabic script and the Uyghur script is a bit too different for me to truly make sense of what I'm reading. The Uyghur language is quite similar to Turkish. It's a Turkic language. I do have a bit of family in Turkey, and I took a couple of Turkish lessons. So since I don't speak Mandarin and not many people speak English, when it comes to ordering food quickly, I pull out the 10 or 20 Turkish words that I know, and it's been working out fairly well. Across China, the Uyghurs are known for making good food. So they're known for making food on skewers and barbecuing them, as well as yogurt. And Urumqi has become kind of this highly touristic area of China. I told a couple of my friends who who either have Chinese heritage or live in China, I told them that I was visiting Urumqi, and they were all super impressed and intrigued, because it's pretty much everyone's dream here in China to come visit Urumqi. And obviously, they don't get access to Western propaganda and of all these claims. So they generally have a positive view of Xinjiang and of Urumqi. Let's see what's going on here. And Xinjiang is known for having a very strong cotton industry. Those cotton fields have pretty much all been sanctioned because of these claims of using forced labor. I'm going to try to visit a vocational school if possible, or maybe a cotton farm to see what we could find. But the Xinjiang area is also very known for their dried fruits. When I was in Guangzhou with my friend, every time he would see someone from an Uyghur person selling dried fruits, he would immediately stop and make sure to buy some of those dates, apricots, and nuts, because they're definitely known for that and for producing good quality products. Cities in China are structured in tiers. So we have let's just say, first tier cities. That would be Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, maybe Shenzhen. Well, definitely Shenzhen. Then you have the second tier cities. Those might be, I would need to be fact-checked on those ones, but maybe Xi'an, Nanjing, Ningbo. And then you have the third tier cities. These might be Foshan, which is just west of Guangzhou. And the tier of these cities basically decides a bit the services that these cities will have. And I mean, it's hard to tell what Urumqi would be. I would maybe say like a third tier city. They're trying to keep it as ethnically accurate. That's probably not the best word for that, because well, first of all, because Xinjiang revolves a lot around tourism, and that definitely helps with tourism, but also because that's one of the values of the Communist Party of China. They have people's congresses where pretty much all the ethnic minorities are represented, and they try to promote those internal cultures. So in Urumqi, it's clearly a bit less developed as, let's just say, Beijing and Shanghai. These are cities of like 40 million people, 25 million people. Urumqi is a bit smaller at 3 or 4 million. So there is a bit of a difference when you notice the quality of the infrastructure. But when you compare Urumqi to Bishkek, to Tashkent, and to Almaty, which are similar sized cities in Central Asia, Urumqi is drastically more developed and maybe more thriving economically. Xinjiang is truly the heart of the Silk Road of Central Asia. It's what connects East and West. And you see it in the influence of the cultures here, right? So a lot of people have been saying that the Uyghurs are assimilated to Chinese culture. But when you think about this, the script that the Uyghurs use is obviously Arab or Persian influence. The language they're speaking is Turkic, and they're in close proximity to China. So this place is a melting pot of all the diverse cultures. I'm currently in the food hall of the Grand Bazaar of Urumqi. This is similar to the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul. And as you can see, you have just local Uyghurs, Chinese, Han Chinese, Kazakh, Kyrgyz, all people alike just enjoying a little barbecue. Here you got the meat skewers that I was telling you guys about. I can't read Chinese, but if we look at the prices quickly, you have here 35 yuan for probably one skewer. That would be like $5 Canadian dollars. And those skewers are quite massive, right? And there are some smaller ones that you could get for like 2-3 yuan. That would be like 50 cents. That's the famous plov with lamb meat, rice, carrots, typical meat of Central Asia. These are the smaller skewers I was telling you about. So yeah, that's 10 yuan or 5 yuan. That would be 5 yuan is maybe less than $1 Canadian dollar. Also, just a little disclaimer I think might be important to share is that this trip is entirely self-funded. I was not given any itineraries by anyone. I'm not guided throughout this journey to go at certain places or not go at any other place at all. So it's self-funded. It's relatively affordable, by the way. So the flight here was probably the most expensive cost. The hotels, I'm staying in pretty nice places for an average of like 25, 30 Canadian dollars a night. And that's pretty much everywhere from Beijing, Guangzhou, and here in Urumqi. Self-funded, no itineraries, no guided tours. And one thing that I also noticed is that flying into Urumqi, there were none of these checkpoints that people, I kind of expected there would be one, right, considering all we hear about this military and police control of Xinjiang. So yeah, just flew there, landed as if you're flying from Montreal to Toronto. It's insanely hot here in Xinjiang, in Urumqi. I'm maybe 3,000 kilometers north of Guangzhou. This is quite common here in China. You have people just putting up stands, live streaming on 2 devices on like Douyin, the Chinese version of TikTok. And I think the other one is Bilibili. It's like the Chinese version of YouTube. And it's just quite comical because, sorry? Oh, just this guy gave me a little candy. What's your name?
My name is Ali.
Ali. Where are you from? You're from Xinjiang?
Yeah. Yes.
How do you like it?
Ili.
Xinjiang Ili. Oh, okay. What does that mean, Xinjiang Ili?
Huh?
What does that mean, Xinjiang Ili?
What? 就是一个地方。
I don't speak, sorry.
you know Chinese?
No, I don't know Chinese. But thank you.
You're from Xinjiang? Ili Xinjiang.
Ili Xinjiang.
对。
Canada? Canada.
Oh.
And Palestine.
Palestine.
Yeah, but thank you. What is this? What is this?
等一下，我那个翻译一下。
Okay, he's going to translate. This is the hard part being in China, is that the language barrier is so strong. I've been pulling up Google Translate every day just to do the most basic tasks, which is great, but also sometimes makes life a bit more complicated than it should. So this is red dates and walnuts. 谢谢你, teşekkürler. All right. maybe they were intrigued by my camera here. He had one as well. So he just gave me this little red date square with walnuts. Can't wait to have that. Now you have Uyghur people listening to great music. This is the brotherhood and sisterhood of the ethnic diversity of China. This is the bread I was referring to with the little patterns and samsung. This is the oven where they make the, what kind of bread is this? Bune? Okay. It's already super hot here in Urumqi. And next to the oven, çok acı, çok sıcak. I believe this is bread that he's making. I think growing up, at least during my university years, I felt some sort of pressure to believe in a lot of these claims about the Uyghurs and Xinjiang. You know, being part of the Palestinian group in my university. Sadly, we were close to the Amnesty International group in my university, and over there was, you know, the regular NGOs and their use for being tools of the empire, propagating these claims, and it's just very weird because I'm here appreciating genuine Uyghur culture, and I was told my entire life that that culture is forbidden and cracked down on. I've been in Urumqi for around 4 or 5 days now, and I've truly not noticed anyone getting stopped by the police. Obviously, it's hard to just, I mean, sometimes it's not just done so publicly, right? But I just mean that for now, there's nothing that pushes me to raise suspicion of any form of abuse or any form of unusual behavior, especially compared to Beijing and Shanghai. I mean, if the sight of seeing police at intersections is shocking, then that's not a Xinjiang thing. That's a whole China thing. And having been in China here for a month and a half now, you realize that governing China is a huge undertaking. It's a hefty task. The Communist Party of China governs 1.4 billion people. And any mismanagement, any major problem can cause instability and people's willingness to uprise. So the Communist Party takes measures to ensure proper infrastructure is built to accommodate 1.4 billion people. I was in Shanghai, maybe 30 million people live there, I have no idea. Clearly much more than any Western city I've been to. But you don't feel it because the trains pass so often. The metro carts are longer in size. There's so much housing everywhere. The roads are properly built. So in some way, when you're in Constantinople or Istanbul, a city of 15 million people, you clearly feel the 15 million. But in Guangzhou, Shanghai, Beijing, you don't feel it because of how the infrastructure is built. And that means that sometimes you'll have ways of governing that are based on efficiency rather than on what us Westerners put so much emphasis on, like these freedoms, right? So in every single metro station, there's a little, like a metal detector barrier that you need to be kind of quickly searched. It takes 2-3 seconds. Because if one bad thing was to happen on that day in that metro station, the damage is significantly bigger due to the nature of more people in, there's always many people in one place. Just imagine the type of security that we see in Canada whenever there's like a very important hockey match. Every day in China, there's the equivalent of a Super Bowl in any given city, in the amount of people just circulating at any given moment. Urumqi is considered a small city, and it's like 4 or 5 million people. That would make it maybe the second biggest city in Canada, right? And in China, I doubt it would be in the top 10. In the mainland, in eastern, the major cities of China that I've been to, I've truly never seen a single police officer with a gun. I've only seen a gun once, and that was because it was those like money moving companies, like those the ones that move like money from one bank to another, the militarized cars. So those are pretty much the only people I've ever seen in China with guns. In Xinjiang, I saw one police officer at an intersection at night, which what seemed to be a gun. I'm not sure what kind of ammunition either. But generally, the police is not quick to pull a trigger like in the West, or at least in the United States. And I've rarely ever seen any interaction with the police and regular citizens. Right behind me, it looks like there's a school.
让他来看你。
好，进来看我啊。可能没可能，没可能。好了，要什么的呢？谢谢。
你好。
我现在来写等的。
The People's Republic of China is very strong on enforcing its one China policy. That means that you cannot recognize the separatists or the plurality of China in terms of states, right? So I believe that the People's Republic of China requires any country to recognize the People's Republic of China's control over Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau, to reciprocate the diplomatic relations. And that is because China, or the People's Republic of China, is under American policy called the island chain link. During the Cold War, America allowed, well, first of all, restricted trade with China because China was protecting Korea during the Korean War, and China adopted a communist policy. And America obviously does not want communism to spread up, so they put immediate trade sanctions, trade restrictions on China. China established the Canton Fair to encourage trade with neighboring countries and with countries that would be sympathetic to, there's a mosque over there, let's check it out, sympathetic to China. So the Americans ended up opening up trade with China during the Sino-Soviet split. So after the death of Stalin, the People's Republic of China decided that Soviet Union was revisionist, not implementing communism enough. Therefore, they split up, and they had very harsh diplomatic relations, to say the very least. And America welcomed that Sino-Soviet split by facilitating trade between, right behind me, right there is a mosque, by facilitating trade between China and America. I believe that was in the 1970s, 1980s. But there was a caveat for trade, is that China cannot expand too much or be too successful at its trade. And to mitigate that risk, America built an alliance of islands on the Pacific coast, on the eastern coast of China, going from South Korea, Japan, Philippines, to a certain extent Vietnam. And that was meant to restrict China's access to international waters, so that it cannot ship too openly, and that America could suffocate China when needed and if needed through that chain of islands that restricted China's access to international waters. Similarly, Xinjiang is the most western coast, western part of China, and it's basically China's access to the Middle East and Europe. It's by creating a separatist movement in Xinjiang, the Americans can basically isolate China even more by tightening that control over all of its borders. First of all, at the north of China, we have Russia that is already heavily sanctioned. I mean, you cannot openly do business with Russian companies. Most of them are sanctioned. That means that in some way, China's already has a chokehold on its northern border with Russia. Then there's the island chain link on the eastern coast of China. And now just to fully put China under America's geographical grip, the West has been pushing those claims of Uyghur genocide and human rights abuses, mainly to control or have some level of control on China's economic development, and by being able to restrict trade for China. But that hasn't been working too well, since it seems, from what I'm noticing, that the Chinese and Uyghurs seem to be living quite peacefully together, and they're mutually benefiting from that alliance. Also, it's important to mention as well that China, during the People's Liberation War, right, from the 1920s to 1950s, when Mao Zedong did the revolution and established the People's Republic of China, the Uyghurs also played a heavy role there by having their own brigades and fighting for a communist China. And China has its own version of affirmative action, and that's while all of China in some way were restricted by the one-child policy. The Xinjiang region was exempt from the one-child policy, and they could have as many children as they want. There were incentives, economic incentives that the government put in place to encourage women who had more than 3 children to stop, and that was more to control the demographic issue that China was exerting at that time. China was relatively poor in the 1980s. And the Communist Party was under the impression that if the population kept increasing, it was going to be more difficult for the country to sustain itself. But those policies did not apply to the Uyghur population, and the Uyghurs were allowed to keep thriving demographically against the rest of China. Now there's no more one-child policy in China at all, and there's no real incentives really stopping Uyghur women from birthing children. A few more things that I noticed here in Xinjiang and Urumqi is how the prices are much cheaper. A meal that would cost around 40 yuan, or like maybe 8 or 9 Canadian dollars, would be half of that. So it would be like 4 Canadian dollars. There are some services here that are not available that you could find in the major cities in Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou. I've been biking a lot in China. I find it super therapeutical. It's a great way of enjoying the city and moving around quickly. Sadly, I cannot ride bikes here. I'm assuming maybe Urumqi is a bit too isolated and too small of a population to make it feasible to put tens of thousands of bikes across the city. So this is kind of the main difference that I've noticed. Also, China is a cashless society, but there was only one shop here in Urumqi that I've been to, which I couldn't shop at because he only took cash. Maybe there was a misunderstanding, but I wanted to get a little haircut. I couldn't get that haircut because he was insisting that I pay on cash, and I don't have cash. No one pretty much does. Everyone uses Alipay.